Good evening, and welcome to episode number 5 of Stephen B. Doc Moore's collection of horror stories on my YouTube channel. I'm your host, Stephen B. Doc Moore. Doc Moore's collection of horror stories presents stories and folklore shared by various individuals focusing on paranormal experiences involving ghosts, shadow people, werewolves, and spiritual phenomena. I also discuss, compare, contrast, and evaluate secular and historical literature with biblical perspectives on ghosts and spirits, as well as folklore practices. These stories are primarily based on interviews and first-hand accounts from people just like yourself who have encountered supernatural events in different settings, and these include basements, attics, military bases, malls, and castles. I also present stories that I'm writing and researching on as well. Please click the subscribe button so I can continue to bring you stories, interviews, research results, and other supernatural subjects from first-hand accounts from people just like you. You've experienced paranormal events, you send them to me, and I read them on the Doc Moore Collection of Horror YouTube channel show. This is episode number 5. Let's get to our stories about people, shadow people, ghosts, and werewolves. These stories are from folks who have experienced the presence of shadow entities. Now here's Jerry from Detroit, his story. Let me tell you about our house. Our home was built like 100 years ago. So we moved in the 1960s. And I felt like there was always something scary about that place. When I was growing up, I hated going to the basement to get food. You know, in Detroit, the basements are always dark and cold, even in the summertime, because the basements in Detroit are underground, underneath the house. Every time Mom sent me down there to go down to the basement, it was always dark. You always had to cut the dim light on at the top of the stairwell. Then go down the first set of stairs. Still dark. Go to the landing, turn the corner, go down another set of stairs where it was dark. Still. You pull the string and cut on another dim light. Go across the floor to the middle of the basement. Cut another overhead light on by pulling the string. Go across the other part of the basement. Cut another overhead light on by pulling that string. Go across the other part of the basement into the back storage room. It's always pitch black, dark as night. This is where the freezers, the big upright freezer and the coffin freezers, were in the basement, side by side. I always felt there was someone down there in the basement with me. I always felt like there was somebody was down there always watching me when I went to get food and drinks. So I had to go down across the basement into the basement closet areas to get the food. And when I went down there, I always tried to go down quickly and come back as fast as possible. But I always felt like there was somebody in the corners watching. I could feel it. I could hear the sounds like somebody was breathing in those corners. And then you could hear somebody shuffling in the corner like somebody's walking really slow, dragging their feet. So I always worked fast. I went as fast as I could. I went across the basement floor to get the food that Mama wanted and back upstairs, fast. I ran across the basement floor. I got to the stairs and there was always the sound of somebody running right behind me. Behind me. I sometimes forgot to cut the light off. I had to go back downstairs, Mama said. Did you cut the light off, she asked. You better not lie. Good luck. Because if Mom goes down there and the lights are on, you're going to get towed up, a spanking for leaving that power on. Electricity wasn't cheap. So I had to turn around and go right back down into the basement. Go back to the middle of the floor. Cut the light off and hurry back up the stairs. And there were the times I felt like there was always somebody touching me, grabbing onto me, holding on to me, touching my neck, sometimes scratching me. It always hurt. It was like a fiend in the midnight horror movies, giggling at me in the dark. To this day, I'm a grown man and I'm still afraid of dark rooms, especially going down into my own home in my own basement. And that was Jerry from Detroit. And this next story, it also talks about shadow entities, and this is from Griffin in Tacoma. My story deals with the attic in a house near Puget Sound where we used to live. You had to go up the stairs. You turn the corner and go up the second set of stairs into the dark attic. The lights were always off and you had to go to the near wall and flip the switch to turn on one set of lights. It was dark in another part of the attic, so if you wanted to go deeper into the attic, you had to turn on other lights in other parts of the attic. You always had to go up the stairs. You had to cut the lights on the walls. I always felt there were ghosts hiding up there in the attic. My family, we always talked about that feeling, the cold there in a warm place, you know, hearing stuff moving around. And there was always some good old ghost hiding up in the attic just waiting for me. That's what I believed then, and I still believe. Let me elaborate more on the shadow people in the attic. I initially shared a room with my two other younger brothers. My parents said if I wanted a room of my own, it was either in the basement or the attic. You know, I didn't want to share a room with my brothers, so I moved up into the attic, the haunted attic. But always at night, when I was in my room in the attic, I always put on a baseball game like the Seattle Mariners or a football game, the Seattle Seahawks. I listened to basketball games, the Seattle Sonics, the Supersonics. I listened to FM or AM radio music. I always listened to the radio because I felt like if there was no sound, I would hear these ghosts creeping around the bed. And I always slept with one desk light on, always. And that was to keep the ghosts away from me. Sometimes I saw shadow people that were there in the attic, just standing there in the shadows, in the dark areas of the room, watching me. I felt the hair on my neck stand up. I felt the hairs on the back of my neck rise. I had goosebumps on my skin. It always felt like ghosts were trying to come close to me. There were times when I was in bed, I looked around and I thought I saw someone standing at the edge of the foot of my bed. Sometimes there were more than one shadow in the room. They looked like they were coming closer, and I could smell them too. Like something was weird, something was in there. And I just felt that cold, foul-smelling air coming closer. You can hear sounds like something was breathing. I didn't know that ghosts breathe, but you could hear the low noise and sometimes humming like it was singing. Sometimes you heard old little words like ooh, ooh, and talking, you know. Let me describe the shadow people. They always had white eyes, but their shapes and their bodies were all black. But I always said prayers. Now, I was told in church and by the minister that when you are afraid, say a prayer to God for protection. Call on Saint Michael. Call on the name of Jesus. The minister said nothing dead can harm you because you have the power of God to protect you. If you believe. And I think that's what protected me from the spookiness from the ghosts. I avoid reading ghost stories to this day now because I remember that stuff back in my attic. Hey, these were ghost stories from Griffin and Jerry. Thanks for your stories. They talk about shadow people, ghosts, in their homes. But you know, ghosts and shadow entities are not just limited to residences. Now here's some ghost experiences on military bases. Military bases are teeming with life due to the large volume of service members, dependents, contractors, and civilians that live and work there. However, military bases are also locations where there have been people that died violently, and this may cause their spirits to remain in these locations. Here are some tales by those who either live or work on bases that have encountered supernatural events. This is a short story from Brother B about his paranormal experiences in Vallejo, California. Ever since I was a kid, I've had a fear of old homes and old buildings. And what I mean by old is something built in the early part of the 20th century or sometime earlier. I don't know. But for some reason, the smell and look of it brings up a haunting feeling that many of us have. We've experienced that at least once in our lifetime. I think everyone has. Anyway, this building was found on the west side of Vallejo, California. It was an old naval shipyard that I worked for and worked at for some years, and I was born there. The shipyard dated back to sometime in 1854, with buildings dating between 1854 to the end of World War II. The hospital I was born in was made back in, I think, the 1860s. I was told by my father that the hospital provided medical service and medical care for severely injured service members during World War II. In fact, my father, himself a U.S. Marine, was treated there during the Korean War. Many of the homes just across the channel were built in the 19th and 20th century as well. I lived in one of them as a kid back in the 1950s. Years later, after spending time in the military and returning from overseas, I worked in one of the older buildings built during the mid-20th century. This building connected to an even older building, perhaps built in the 1800s. Our old enclosed walkways were used to go back and forth between the two buildings during late night work. The most eerie feelings used to come to me while crossing the walkway, something that I just couldn't pinpoint. It happened every time I crossed it, but only late at night. While I can only describe it as an uncanny feeling of being watched, my only explanation is perhaps this was just eeriness or eerie, or it was direct correlation with the other hauntings that may have been experienced by others in the shipyard. Perhaps just my own sensitivity to the transition of entering a building from a different century. And that was a good story, Brother B. Really relevant story to what we're talking about. Now I want to stay on this thing about ghost activity on military bases. This one comes from Adolfo. Adolfo lives in Hawaii. Adolfo was a security forces officer. And here's his story about a ghost haunting his office building. I worked at Pearl Harbor as a base policeman for 20 years. I was a patrolman, and later I was promoted to handle the night desk. Now let me tell you, Pearl Harbor has a lot of ghosts. A lot of ghosts. Not just Pearl Harbor. Other bases around Hawaii do too. Hickam Air Force Base, Schofield Barracks, Wheeler Air Base, Kaneohe Marine Corps Base, NC Tams, Lualule, Barking Sands, and more places. All these places have a history because of not just World War II, but the fact that this was Hawaiian lands before the military came and took it over. Hawaiian people, immigrants that worked the cane fields, missionaries, others, they passed away in Hawaii from wars and from natural causes, murder, foul play, you name it, whatever killed a person. It is the end of life. But what I'm going to talk about is this thing that happened when I was first starting out as a admin guy on a desk at night. See, patrol officers and military police officers, they'll call them MPs, who worked nights on Pearl Harbor, they told me you got a lot of buildings where the lights are on at night when everybody's left for the day, and doors are locked, especially the one I worked in. We got calls that people hear crying, screaming, wailing. They hear sounds of people when no one is in these buildings. And that's something I can say happened to me once. It was my first night working the desk, as I am now doing management of base officers and MPs for the security forces. The rule was the last one working is the last one who leaves the office and has to go around from the top to the bottom of the building. Lock up. This means check and lock up every room to make sure that everything was put away and there were no classified documents left out. Now, most people, before they left, they made sure to take their bags and their coffee cups and their lunch bags and whatever else they had, and they got out of there fast. On this night, I was the designated last person to cut the lights off and lock up. I was warned, make sure you cut off all the lights in your office, starting at the back, going toward the door. Quickly step out and lock the door. Step out and lock the door, shut it quickly. Because if you stand there, you will see and hear somebody or somebodies coming from the back. They say through the back rooms toward you past the desks. They will come through the desk area fast towards you with their hands out in front of you, trying to grab you. So, after I worked on the evening reports, it was time to lock up and go home. I had to go back and make sure all the doors were locked in the other offices and make sure everything was put away. Nothing was on people's desks. When you walk around the offices in the building, sometimes you hear stuff moving around. You can hear sounds like people breathing. Sometimes you hear people going ha 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 ha, laughing, and there's no one there. I checked every floor, all the rooms. I came back to my office to shut it down at last. So I was walking up toward my desk after I went around and locked the doors, and I felt like somebody was right behind me, like they followed me to my office. I looked back and I was like, I could have sworn I saw somebody in the corner of my eyes standing off to the side, you know? Kind of a ghost, a big ghost. So as I walked rather quickly, I heard somebody shuffling behind me, and I walked faster towards the door. And as I walked, I was cutting off the lights, but I forgot to cut off the kitchen snack room light. Damn. I had to stop, go back into the kitchen, back into the office, and cut the lights off. The entire office was already dark except for the kitchen snack room. So I went back in, cut the kitchen light off. It was now completely dark in the entire office. I heard sounds like more than footsteps, like more than one person moving from the back towards me. Low moaning sounds, low talking sounds, shuffling footsteps. So I moved quickly and I hit the front door and I turned and slammed the door shut. But something pushed against the door and I had to push hard. And something reached through the crack of the door and touched me, and it was cold, but I pushed that door shut. And that's not the only spooky thing that happened, not just to me, but to others who came behind me working there, and they had to cut off the lights and work nights. We all compared notes. Our professional conclusion: this building is haunted. Holy smoke. Wow, that was good. Hey, we're going to keep going now. And this one is from Priscilla. She's also from Hawaii, and she talks about her encounter with ghosts. People refuse to go to the bathroom in this one office building on Kaneohe Marine Corps Base. They say that when someone is in a stall, you can see the feet of a man outside the stall, even when the doors are locked. This happened to me. I saw the feet of a man outside the stall I was in. I saw the same thing others have seen. The stall doors were locked. There's only one person in the bathroom, and that was me. I was shocked because I was in a woman's bathroom, but I saw the legs of a man wearing old military uniform. Military shoes, low quarter shoes and part of the pants legs, like they were wearing a uniform. It looked like some man in brown khakis, standing at the stall while I was in there. And the man was knocking on the stall door. And I looked up and I saw a pale-faced man. And this man had to be very tall above the doors. I saw a face and I'm looking right through it like it's opaque. That scared me and I screamed. Yes, I screamed. And the man disappeared. Now, I still work there. But you can also occasionally hear a woman scream. And because she is seeing what I and other women have seen. And it's not just women. Men have said they've seen a ghost in the men's bathroom. They come out of the bathroom looking crazy, and that's happened a lot. There's people scared to use the bathrooms, but they must go. And especially if you work late, yes. Then you got to deal with that ghost peeking over the stall at you. Hey, that's... Are you getting goosebumps listening to this? This is something else, man. I tell you. You got to deal with this stuff. Now, this next story is not about a military base, but this is about a building where security people work. Security people work all kind of odd, weird hours, late night hours, checking buildings. Well, this next story is from Eddie. He's from Portland. And Eddie's a security guard at a place he doesn't want to name, probably for, his job. So here's Eddie's tale. And I promise I wouldn't tell his building name. The building where we check, initially in the evening, the lights are off. The alarms are set. All the people are out of the building. Then stuff starts at maybe 11 p.m. We start getting the calls for activity in the building. Rooms that were dark, now the lights will all be on. The building alarms may be going off, so we must go into the building, See if someone is working late and left the lights on. The doors are locked. There's nobody. So we reset the alarms. We check the building and we leave. Same thing again. This time, 1 o'clock in the morning. We get another call. Alarms going off. Shadow people, maybe in the building. We see the outline of somebody up in the window. The lights are on, but when we go up there, there's nobody in the building. There's no one anywhere in the building. We check the bathrooms and the lights. We get this all the time, and it's been going on for years. Now, I talked to some of the old-timers, guys that have been there for years. And some of the old-timers, guys who've been working security for years and years, they say, it's ghosts. They say folks were killed in the basement of the building. They say people committed suicide in the offices when they lost their jobs. There may be ghosts still there, still functioning, still hanging around, So that's one thing. But it was all the time. And the lights still come on after midnight. These ghost stories make you think. They make you wonder. Let's dig into what a ghost is. We talk about ghosts, spirits, shadow entities, but what are they? Considering ghosts, I look up the word in the dictionary. Merriam-Webster Dictionary defines a ghost as an apparition of a dead person that appears to the living. The spirit of a person who died, the seat of life, a disembodied soul. Now that's the dictionary, a secular book. What about a religious text? What does that consider about a ghost? Let's turn to the Bible. The Bible says in Hebrews 9:27, once a person dies, the person goes before God. Ecclesiastes 12:7 determines that when a person dies, they at once go to God. So different books of the Bible says there is no possibility of anyone staying on the earth as a spirit. So if that's the case, who or what are ghosts according to the Bible? In 2 Corinthians 11:14-15, ghosts are demons masquerading as angels of light. They appear like ghosts. Okay, let's go further. Let's talk more about what the Bible says about ghosts. The Bible says Jesus told the apostles he wasn't no ghost after he was raised from the dead. He said he had flesh and blood and told them to touch him to prove to them. He said, touch my wounds, because in the Bible, a ghost means a spirit or soul or a demon. You know, the Holy Ghost, on the other hand, Jesus sent was the Holy Spirit to bring knowledge and truth to the apostles. But the Bible also says, as to the spirits of the dead, do not seek them out, because they can be evil spirits. Now, Jesus sent the spirit of truth, but the Bible also says don't mess with other spirits because they can be evil. You know what the term means, giving up the ghost? It's an old expression for dying, meaning to yield your breath or your spirit. The Bible warns against consulting mediums to speak with the spirits of dead, because the dead have their own world. And I talked about that in previous stories, for example, about Saul. So consider this. Think about it. Think about this. If you're a ghost investigator, should you or should you not go about looking or speaking to the dead or looking for ghosts? The Bible says people shouldn't hunt ghosts, but people do investigate it, because we, the people, want to know, is there life after death? Do you have an answer? Send your answers to docmorecollectionhorror@hotmail.com. So here's some questions for you. What do you think is a ghost? Do you believe a ghost appears or becomes or manifests to the living as a nebulous image? What defines being a ghost? I did literature searches, and literature such as National Geographic Secrets of the Supernatural edition says a ghost is a soul or spirit of a dead person. This is believed by some that ghosts can appear to the living. Description of ghosts vary widely from invisible to translucent to realistic. Remember the stories I just presented from listeners on the show sending in their accounts about seeing the face of ghosts and shadows and hearing ghosts move. Realistic life forms. That's interesting to know. Literature goes forward more about the paranormal and descriptions, or describes different types of ghosts. There are ghosts that are intelligent ghosts that can interact and communicate. There's residual hauntings. These are events that passed, events that are replayed over and over and reenacted. Poltergeist, the German word for a noisy ghost that can cause physical disturbances, knocking things, throwing things, scratching and biting people. It sounds like in earlier stories what happened to people. They got scratched, something touched them, pushed them against doors, stood there, reached around doors, and knocked on doors. You have shadows. You can see them out the side of your eyes. They're dark. And then you have the crisis ghost. And these are ghosts that appear when a person's passed. Like if somebody's in a car accident and everybody sees the spirit leaving the car. You have vengeful ghosts. revenants. They're looking at revenge. Maybe they were murdered. So these are some of the things that people talk about. When they talk about folk tales, when you get together and you gather and talk about family history, or you get at the campfires and tell about spirits and ghosts, things like that about spirits. And when people hunt ghosts, they look for those types of ghosts. Now we're going to discuss ghost hunting and ghost investigations in the future. Now I'm gonna bring up something a little different now, add to our little channel. Here's some paranormal based trivia. There's a vessel that's said to appear around the Cape of Good Hope. When it storms, what is that vessel? It's called the Flying Dutchman. It was condemned to sail forever. Here's another piece of trivia. Hamlet is one of the most famous ghost stories of all. Written by Shakespeare. Who was the ghost in Hamlet? According to Shakespeare, the ghost is Hamlet's father, the late King Hamlet. This paranormal based trivia is going to be part of our episodes going forward, and we're going to have some fun with it and also get a little knowledge. We're going to turn to a little different subject now. Speaking of the Bible, there's a chapter about testing the spirit. The reason you test the spirit is to see whether it's an evil spirit or false prophet. Remember, we just talked about what it says in the Bible about ghosts. It's important to test to see whether this evil spirit wants to do you harm. You ask the spirit to say the words, Jesus Christ. The spirit says Jesus Christ, that means it's not going to harm you. But if it won't say Jesus Christ, it will harm you. It will do great harm to you. That's why you test the spirit. And it incorporates evaluating the spirit as written by 1 John chapter 4, verses 1 through 4. You want to make sure the spirit, if it's truly from God and not evil. Now, I always do research, and I always like to write about things I hear and dig up and interview people about it. I have authored a story in my book, Doc Moore's Collection of Horror Stories. And it is one of my stories, and another part of this story will be in my next book. But this is based on research I did on folklore when I was stationed in Europe, in Stuttgart, Germany. And it's in my book again, Doc Moore's Collection of Horror Stories. Well, what I learned in this folk tale in Europe, there was a child whose mom and dad left him home by himself and told him not to open the door. Do not open the door for anyone. You see, the parents had done evil themselves, They dabbled in some things they shouldn't have. Rituals and the like. Ouija boards and things like that. And they were warned something was coming because they did evil. They were afraid that something was going to come back and get them. So they told the boy, always test. Never open a door until the test is passed. Now, could whoever on the other side of the door say Jesus in any fashion, in any sentence? Like, for instance, say the soup was made by Jesus, or I fell and Jesus lifted me up. They told the boy to ask 3 separate ways, 3 different questions, 3 different sentences that would include Jesus. Now, this boy was home alone. He's watching TV. Parents left, went out. They gave him his instructions, the numbers to call in case of emergency. Before they left, they gave him specific instructions to follow. No exception. Remember to ask those 3 questions, they said. Then keep Jesus in each question. Now the kid says yes, 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 but he wasn't really paying attention. He just wanted to get back to watching cartoons and playing video games. So he locked the door, went back, jumped on the couch, and watched TV. Mom and Dad hadn't got back. It was like 7, 8 o'clock at night, 9 o'clock, then 10 o'clock. He was still left at home all alone. This little boy was all by himself. Mom and Dad still hadn't come back yet, but he heard somebody outside, and he heard 3 loud knocks on the door, followed by heavy breathing, some laughter and giggling. He thought it was his friends sneaking out of the house next door, coming over to mess with him because they knew he was alone, all by himself. So he forgot his mom and dad's message not to open the door. But he did remember the test. So the boy asked, "Who is it? Who is it?" The voice said, "Let me in. I'm your friend." And the boy said, "Oh, what kind of soup are you stirring, Jesus?" The voice answered, "Oh, I'm stirring soup." The voice did not say Jesus. And the little boy said, "Well, it sounds like my friend." So he asked a second question. The boy asked a second question. "Me and my friends went for a ride. Did you go with us with Jesus?" And the voice on the door said, "Oh, me and my friends went for a ride. Yeah, remember?" And the boy remembered because they did ride in the car with the boy's parents. Still, he asked the last question. He said, "Do you think Jesus is running around the house with me?" The voice on the other side of the door said, "I think I'm running around the house with you. It's fun." The voice sounded just like his mom at that time. So the boy thought the voice was his friend, and he thought it was his mother and his father. He thought they were all outside, waiting to get in. So he opened the door. The boy, against his parents' training and advice, allowed the evil spirit into the home. And that's when the evil spirit came in and chased him. It screamed and laughed and said, "I am going to get you." The boy ran into the living room and tried to hide behind the couch. The evil spirit peered over the couch and screamed, "Tag, I got you." It let the boy run up the stairs, gleefully giggling as he stomped up the stairs behind the terrified child. The evil spirit mimicked the boy's parents and friends. "Let me in, did you?" the evil spirit said. The evil spirit chased the boy up to his bedroom. The boy shut the door and locked it. The evil spirit waited outside the bedroom door. It said to the boy, "We're going to play I Spy with my little eye. Oh, I love that game. And you have 3 attempts to hide. If I can't find you after 3 attempts, you are free, and I will leave you alone." But it said with an evil, deep voice that went into a high-pitched voice, "If I find you, I will take you to the darkness with me, and you will never see your family again." First, the boy tried to hide in the closet. The evil spirit said to the boy, "My eyes are closed, but I spy you hiding in the closet." The boy screamed and ran from the closet to the bathroom. He hid in the shower. He covered his mouth to stop crying. The evil spirit said, "Oh, I spy with my little eyes. You are in the shower." The little boy ran from the shower and ran and crawled under his mom and dad's bed as far back as he could crawl. The evil spirit said to the little boy, "I will count to 3. 1, 2, 3. Ready or not, here I come." The evil spirit pushed the door hard and busted in. The little boy covered his mouth as he saw the clawed hoofs of the evil spirit going around the room. "Not here," said the evil spirit as it went into the bathroom. The boy shook with fear. The evil spirit went to the closet and yanked open the doors. "Not here," said the evil spirit. The boy started to scream but covered his mouth with his hands. The evil spirit said in the boy's mother's voice, "I guess you win." It left the room and started down the stairs. The boy started to relax. Then he stopped. The boy heard the evil spirit as it walked down the stairs saying, "I can't find you. Oh, I have one more attempt." The evil spirit stopped, turned, and slowly stomped up the stairs. The boy saw the evil spirit enter the bedroom door. The evil spirit went to the side of the bed. The little boy tried not to scream when the evil spirit looked under the bed and stared at him. The evil spirit said to the boy, I spy with my little eye. You are under the bed. I spy with my little eye. You're under the bed. I got you. Ha ha ha. The evil spirit reached under the bed and dragged him out. And the evil spirit got him. It took the boy down the stairs and out the front door. The evil spirit and the boy disappeared into the night. The neighbors heard him screaming, and they called the police. And just as the police were coming there, so were his parents. And when they got to the house, the boy was no longer there. They hunted all over the house. The police checked the neighborhood. Still, they could not find the little boy. And they never saw the boy again. But they heard screams and cries in the bedroom every night. And that's the story that'll be in my next book. And you can also find a story like that in my current book, Doc Moore's Collection of Horror Stories. Here's a mailbox. We're going to turn to our mailbox now. I've been getting some emails, some texts, and some voicemails. And here's some of the things I received. Dear Dr. Moore, I remember the last show, and if you look at the pictures, there's a face in one of the clouds. I kept looking at it, and I saw a face in a cloud. So I recommend going back and look at the pictures. Okay, now I got to check and see which one has a face in it. Do you see any faces? If you do, let me know. Send your comments to Doc Moore Collection of Horror at hotmail.com. Now here's another email or text. Aloha, Doc Moore. I like your show. I want to talk about Atsugi Naval Air Station in Japan because you talked about Sagami Depot, Japan. I was stationed at Atsugi too, and there's a tree on Atsugi. And on a moonlit night, if you drive slowly, you will see a human body, a dead body hanging from the tree. But then you must go fast because if you don't, it'll drop off the branch and run to your car and try to get in the car with you. So you must try to make it to the back gate, you know. But yes, other people stationed at Atsugi, all of them have said the same thing. People try to test it all the time, and the same thing happens to them too. Oh, you chicken skin stories that say in Hawaii, goosebumps on the mainland. I got email stories that talk about ghosts haunting shopping malls. Check these out. Dr. Moore, hi. There's a lot of stories about ghosts in houses, but how about malls? People have passed away in the malls. Like, for instance, I was a fast food server at a mall in Boston. I went to the bathroom. It's down at the bottom in the basement of the mall. Everybody must go through the hallway down there in the men's room. You might hear somebody in a stall. You think it's a person, right? And somebody walked past. Like I was washing my hands, and there was somebody behind me. Somebody in a big white shirt and white pants walked past me, and I turned my head. I didn't see I didn't see his head. I didn't see his feet. Just shirt and pants. Other people said a guy died in the men's room stall. The guy overdosed on drugs and died in the stall. They say he's still there asking for help. Whew. Here's another one about a ghost in a mall. Aloha, Dr. Moore. I went to a dressing room in a mall store in Sacramento. And you know, I took some dresses and pants off a rack and went in the last dressing room. I put my stuff in there and I changed my clothes. And as I was changing, I felt someone was in the dressing room with me. And what I saw scared me because it looked like it was a woman standing in the corner right in the same stall that I was in the changing room, you know, and I jumped and I yelled and the clerk came running and she said, "What happened?" I saw a woman and she said, "Oh, let me get you help. Let me tell you what's going on." So I changed my clothes. I went to pay for them. And the lady said, "Now please don't pass this word around. But there was a woman who killed herself in a store in the same stall that you're using. We don't think she was killing herself. We think her boyfriend stabbed her and killed her in that stall." That's what the rumor has, but we usually keep that dressing room stall closed. But somebody took the sign down, and that was the one you were in. Uh-oh. Can you just imagine that? Can you see that? Can you feel that? I got another email. Hey, Doc Moore, love your show. Thank you, for providing a place for us to talk ghost stories. Here's one for you. There's a food court in Milwaukee. The food court is open late at night because the movie theaters are open after the mall closes. People know they can come in after the movie to the food court because they feed people leaving the movie theaters. Well, there's a ghost that comes near you in the food court around midnight. Somebody choked to death on food right there in the food court at the mall. People say when you're at a table in the back of the restaurant near the restrooms, if you look, you'll see someone just sitting there. You see a shadow, a shape, and it'll get up and come near you and sit by you. You feel a real cold area, or you see a chair moving. Well, that's interesting. Now, this one comes from a listener who didn't want to tell me his or her name. Hey, Doc, I love your show. Keep it up. I'm going to talk about this parking lot over here in East Oahu. I was going to the parking lot late one night because I was working late. I went to the parking lot and there was somebody standing by the road near the parking lot. I was getting nervous, so I walked kind of quick to my car. But it looked like the person was moving the same way toward me at the same speed. Whoa. So I tried to walk faster to my car, and that person was trying to cut me off while I was getting to my car. And when I got close to my car, I looked at him, and it looked like I could see right through him. He tried to grab my arm, so I jumped in my car and shut the door. I turned my car on and I took off, and when I looked in the rearview mirror, the man was in the back seat. I screamed and he smiled, leaned forward and touched me, then disappeared. I almost crashed into a wall on the freeway. I told my family about it, and other people said the same thing happened to them. Now, the cop who came to my car when I pulled over on the H1 freeway, it told me that, oh yeah, that happens a lot to people working late, especially women over at that parking stall. The guy was he was a known felon who attacked women, but he messed with the wrong woman who stabbed him. And he fell out of her car. He still tried to choke her, but she ran away, and he fell out the car and died in the parking lot. Now, those are some really good, bone-chilling, scary stories. And so far, we've been talking about ghosts. But now I want to tell you about a werewolf. His story is about werewolves. And this is a story I did based on research that I conducted while I was in France with my family on leave. We went to Lourdes and we went to Paris. And while I was there, of course, I was like talking with people, and I did some research. And I found out that there's a significant history of werewolves in France. For instance, according to the literature, there were a significant number of people who claimed they were werewolves. A number of people were submitted to werewolf trials in the 17th century, and they were executed, burned. So the research illustrates the story I obtained by also talking with people, including this one person he was one of the stewards on the train when we rode to and from Paris, from Stuttgart. And she talked about a werewolf story her grandparents told her when she was growing up in northern France. I took that information and did my research, and here's my upcoming werewolf story for my next book. And here's an excerpt from it. This is one of the tales that I have in my next book. Now, this is a folk tale that I was told when I was growing up about why you shouldn't walk in the woods by yourself at night. We have a lot of woods by home here in France. And there are a lot of castles, like many castles that are in mountains next to the woods. Well, this girl was working at a castle near a small village. She was hired as a maid and a housekeeper for a baroness and her husband. The girl arrived early in the morning to work and normally left before the evening fell. Now, there was one other person working there, and he was the butler. One day, When the maid was working in the castle, a priest and a doctor came, and she heard that the Baron had died. The Baroness buried her husband, and everything continued as normal. But one evening when the girl was getting ready to end her day, she saw something that made her quit immediately. She quit because she thought she saw the Baroness' husband, who had previously died. The dead man was trying to talk to her. He said, "Beware," and disappeared. And with that, she wanted to leave and go home. It was getting dark. So the owner of the home, the Baroness, said, "Yes, you can go." The maid grabbed her shawl, covered her shoulders. The Baroness said that the maid's shawl was pretty, and could she have it? And the maid told the woman her mother made it, so she couldn't give it away. The Baroness asked the girl as she was leaving, "Why do you want to leave so early?" The girl said, "I saw your husband. I know he's dead and was buried." The Baroness laughed at the maid and said she was being silly. The maid insisted that she saw the dead man in the living room, and the dead man warned the maid to leave and never return. The Baroness let her go and said, "You can leave." So the girl said she was leaving. "I'm going and I don't think I'm coming back." The girl took off, went through the door, out the castle, across the bridge, down the lane, and into the woods to go to her village, which is about a mile away. Now the maid had only gone a quarter of the way from the castle when she felt like someone was walking behind her. She kept walking. She started singing religious songs, but still she kept feeling like someone was walking behind her. She started walking a little faster. She pulled her shawl around her shoulders a little more as the wind started picking up and it started getting darker. And then the moon appeared behind a cloud. From behind the cloud, the moonlight shined. Then the moon itself came out bright. The girl stopped. She could see shadows on the ground behind her. She saw the shadows, and she turned and looked, and she thought she saw shadows with yellow eyes glowing on the same lane that she was coming down. She turned around and she kept hearing growling, strange noises breathing behind her. She heard more growling behind her, getting closer. Sounds like something was pursuing her. She started getting more terrified, and she sang church songs and prayers, and she was getting scared by the minute. She looked back in the darkness, not really wanting to look back, but she had to, and she saw glowing eyes of something. It looked like a tall man with glowing red eyes and yellow eyes, and she walked faster, but at the same time, it walked faster behind her, and finally she started to run, and she lost her shoes, and she kept running, and she heard it behind her, coming closer. She saw the light of the village ahead. She saw the light of the church closer, and she started running, singing, "God save me, God protect me." She saw the light of the church at the edge of the village, and she saw the thing behind her, pursuing her, growling, reaching out for her, snarling. She barely made it to the church grounds. The growling thing snatched her shawl, pulled her clothes, and grabbed her hair. She ran into the church grounds. The thing behind her screamed and let her go. There was a priest and a few ministers who were inside the church putting away things at night. The priest had service earlier that day. The maid missed the service because she had planned to get earlier to the church. She always wanted to get off early and go to service. But that night she came in and she was all distraught. The minister asked her what was the problem, what was the matter. Her clothes were messed up, her hair was a mess, she had no shoes on. Her feet were muddy, her legs were muddy, and her dress was ripped and torn. Her stockings were torn. She told the priest what happened, about her being chased by something with glowing eyes. The priest contacted the town constable. She told him the same story, and the constable and the priest arranged for men to follow her back through the woods where they came. They had torches and swords. They followed her back through the woods, and as they were going down the lane, the lights from the torches showed them footprints. They saw the girl's footprints, and they saw what was behind her that looked like a tall, big, heavy animal with claws working on two legs, walking on two legs. And they heard howling at the front of the castle. They followed the footsteps right back to the front door of the castle. They knocked on the castle door, and the Baroness and another servant answered the door. The servant was a tall wolf-like looking man with a lean face and high widow's peak hairline. He told them to go away. There was no more people coming through to the castle at night. The constable and the priest insisted, and finally the Baroness came to the door. The Baroness had on the girl's shawl. The maid gasped and said, "That's my shawl." The sheriff pushed his way in. The woman and the servant stepped back into their room. The men were stunned. The moonlight hit the Baroness and the butler as they stepped back in the room, and they were at once transformed into werewolves. They attacked the men that came in the room. They attacked the constable that was in front, and they tried to get to the housekeeping maid. But the priest who came with them, he knew what to do. He raised his crucifix and they backed away from him, eyes glowing, snarling. And just then the priest had a silver spike. The priest had heard about these werewolves attacking people and read how to defeat werewolves from old documents others made that told you how to kill a werewolf. You needed silver, and you knew that this was going to be something that would be needed, and we'd have had to do it. So he pulled the silver spikes out of his bag, and he poured holy water on it. The priest rushed up to the butler and stabbed him in the chest with the silver spike deep into his chest. The werewolf howled and fell to the ground. He started to transform back into a human being. Meanwhile, the Baroness ran up the stairs to the top of the castle. The priest said, "Everyone, stand back." He took out another silver spike. The constable followed him upstairs into the Baroness's room at the top of the castle. The constable opened the door. She wasn't to be seen. There, as they walked into the room, the Baroness dropped behind them, down from the top of the ceiling. She had been wedged up in the corner of the top of the ceiling wall. She scratched the constable. The priest held the crucifix out. She fell back as the priest held the crucifix. The priest blessed the spike with holy water and drove the spike into the Baroness. She began to transform as she died, screaming and howling. The priest knew the woman, the man that he drove the spike into were not the real Baron and Baroness. He told everyone the story. The woman and butler were husband and wives and werewolves. They killed the original Baron, his wife and his servant, and they took their place. And they only came out the castle at night, on a moonlit night, when they were hungry and it was time to get people to eat. That was a story I obtained from my visit to France. France has a lot of stories about werewolves and castles and other creepy things, and I will be telling you more, and we'll dig into those at later upcoming shows. These stories dealt with creepy, ghastly, notorious entities, supernatural beings, and hauntings. Supernatural beings. I got one more story about an evil spirit. This evil spirit controlled a human being. I heard this story from some folks when we were traveling down south and going through Mississippi. And this is how the story goes. There was a car. It started showing up back in the 1950s. You know, it showed up at elementary schools and playgrounds. It had really black windows. You couldn't see anybody in the car. It was, even though it was a pretty normal looking car. But when the windows came down, even though you couldn't see anybody in the car, there was always a person's hand reaching out with candy toward children, you know. And kids would go to the car, and the next thing you know, a kid is missing. A child's missing. Well, one day, this car pulls up around the playground. The man or whoever's in the car holds out some candy. He holds it out the window, and the kid walks up. The door on the side of the car opens up. The kid is pulled into the car. Well, some man was happened to be there. He takes off right behind the car, in his own car, follows it, goes to the cemetery. He gets out and confronts who's in the car. He takes the child, brings the child back, and this time the cops are there. He brings the child back and everybody's happy. Everyone's calling him a hero and everything. The guy's shaking hands, smiles, get back in his car. He goes right back to the cemetery where he found the child. He gets out, walks into a house right next to the cemetery, goes down into the basement of the house, and there's an evil spirit in the house, because the house is that man's home. And in the basement is a family, a mother, a father, 2 kids, and they're all tied up and drugged. The evil spirit is telling the man, see how easy it is to get people to think you're a hero? And because they think you're a hero, they won't mess with you or even think that you're the one who actually took the children and the families. Because this guy found the family whose car broke down on the road, and he told him he'll take them somewhere to help them. He gave them cold sodas and water, but the soda and the water had drugs in it. And he drugged them and he took them to his house, and he took them in the basement and tied them up. And then the evil spirit said to him, now we can eat. And I was told a story, some old relatives lived way back up in the woods up there. And they said, don't get in the car with anybody, don't go with strangers. They said this is a true story because the evil spirit, it liked what they call cooked meat, mucus, and fungus. The cooked meat was the people, the mucus was cheese, and the fungus was mushrooms. So this guy was a possessed soul who cooked people and ate them with mucus, cheese, and fungus, mushrooms, and he was guided by an evil spirit. They say he was captured later and confessed on everything that I just told you about, and he was executed. So that's how the story came about. Talking to old people, the old people know, beware. And that's what they told me. All right, that's it for today. Episode number 5, about ghosts, evil spirits, werewolves, all the things that people believe in. Thank you for listening and participating in my collection of horror stories. And join me next time, because I'll bring you more stories dealing with the fascination, cultural history, and scientific or exploration of the supernatural phenomena. Send your ghost stories to Doc Moore, collectionhorror@hotmail.com. Subscribe button, please click on it, so I can continue to bring you stories, interviews, research results, and other supernatural subjects with first-hand accounts from people just like you. So until next time, the noise in the dark, the bump in the night, is it real? You be the judge. You've been listening to Doc Moore's collection of horror stories with your host, Stephen B. Moore Sr., Ph.D. Join us next time as Doc Moore presents more stories about ghosts, spirits, mediums, and other paranormal encounters. All music created by Tanya and Stephen B. Moore Sr. and the Doc Moore Ohana Band. And this show was created, produced, and copyrighted by Stephen B. Moore Sr., Ph.D. Media Productions, LLC. Good evening.